Welcome to the Sense Making in a Changing World podcast, where we explore the kind of thinking we need to navigate a positive way forward. I'm your host, Morag, permaculture educator and global ambassador, filmmaker, eco-villager, food forester, mother, practivist, and all-round lover of thinking, communicating, and acting regeneratively. For a long time, it's been clear to me that to shift trajectory to a thriving one-planet way of life, we first need to shift our thinking. The way we perceive ourselves in relation to nature, self, and community is the core. So this is true now more than ever, and even the way change is changing. Unprecedented changes are happening all around us at a rapid pace. So how do we make sense of this? To know which way to turn, to know what action to focus on, so our efforts are worthwhile and nourishing and are working towards resilience, regeneration, and reconnection. What better way to make sense than to join together with others in open, generative conversation? In this podcast, I'll share conversations with my friends and colleagues, people who inspire and challenge me in their ways of thinking, connecting, and acting. These wonderful people are thinkers, doers, activists, scholars, writers, leaders, farmers, educators, people whose work informs permaculture and spark the imagination of what a post-COVID, climate-resilient, socially just future could look like. Their ideas and projects help us to make sense in this changing world, to compost and digest the ideas, and to nurture the fertile ground for new ideas, connections, and actions. Together, we'll open up conversations in the world of permaculture design, regenerative thinking, community action, earth repair, eco-literacy, and much more. I can't wait to share these conversations with you. Over the last 3 decades of personally making sense of the multiple crises we face, I always return to the practical and positive world of permaculture, with its ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share. I've seen firsthand how adaptable and responsive it can be in all contexts, from urban to rural, from refugee camps to suburbs. It helps people make sense of what's happening around them and to learn accessible design tools to shape their habitat positively and to contribute to cultural and ecological regeneration. This is why I've created the Permaculture Educators Program, to help thousands of people to become permaculture teachers everywhere through an interactive online dual certificate of permaculture design and teaching. We sponsor global perma-youth programs, women's self-help groups in the Global South, and teens in refugee camps. So anyway, this podcast is sponsored by the Permaculture Education Institute and our Permaculture Educators Program. If you'd like to find more about permaculture, I've created a 4-part permaculture video series to explain what permaculture is and also how you can make it your livelihood as well as your way of life. We'd love to invite you to join our wonderfully inspiring, friendly and supportive global learning community. So I welcome you to share each of these conversations, and I'd also like to suggest you create a local conversation circle to explore the ideas shared in each show and discuss together how this makes sense in your local community and environment. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I meet and speak with you today, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. It's my deep honour to welcome to the show today Satish Kumar, the founder of Schumacher College in England, in Devon, the place that really inspired me and set me on the path that I'm on today. And also he's the founder of The Small School and a nuclear disarmament activist, former Jain monk, and well known for his peace walk, where he walked from India across the world, 13,000 kilometres by foot with no money and just a friend in the 1960s, on his way to meet all the key leaders of the nuclear armed countries and offer them peace tea. On his way he met so many leaders, and he did indeed find his way to meet up with Bertrand Russell, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winning 89-year-old who was jailed for peace, and the person who inspired Satish on his journey. Anyway, Satish is also the editor of Resurgent. For decades he's been doing that, and more recently the Resurgence and Ecologist magazine together. He's a visionary educational thinker and leader, and he has several honorary doctorates in education, literature and law. He has a BBC natural history program that aired called The Earth pilgrim. And he's the author of many books, and most recently, Elegant Simplicity, The Art of Living Well, which he had just published when I met and talked with him for this interview. So this interview was actually recorded when I met up again with Satish at Schumacher College last year. Satish is a dear friend of mine. We've known each other since 1992 when I first went to Schumacher College as a young 23-year-old. And it's been Satish's inspiration over these years that, as I said, set me on the path that I'm on today. So it's an absolute honour to have him on the show, and I really hope you enjoyed this conversation about education. I was really wanting to talk with you today about education because that's the focus of my work and my work in many parts of the world. I work with people in Africa and I work with people in local community schools and just everywhere really. And it's about rippling out the idea that we need to change. And how is it that we need to change? And how can we work with that in our own lives and in our own communities to keep it rippling out in a really positive way? And so echoing, your what do you call it? The soul society, head, heart and hands. And so for me, I've always looked to you, to the work that you've done and the things that you've talked about over the years as a real sort of guiding point for the type of education that we need in this world. And I would love to ask you about that more.
Yeah. At the moment, our education is to prepare young people for jobs and not for life. And when you prepare for jobs, you are preparing them for their own personal success. So when they go out after university or schools, they go out in the world looking for their own success, earning lots of money, getting a big house, getting some name, for fame, for prestige, for power, for control, something for ourselves, for myself. And so I call that kind of education for ego boosting. And therefore everybody is in competition against each other and getting success for themselves. Now, what I want education should be education not for my success, but education to serve the earth and care for other people. And when I serve the earth and look after the natural environment and look after other people, then the earth and other people will look after me. So I get the benefit which I'm seeking, but not seeking for myself, but others giving me that life, but I am offering myself. So everybody is offering their service to others, and therefore everybody is getting their service. Rather than pulling for themselves, everybody pulling towards themselves, everybody's away. Whereas everybody bringing together, everybody's getting benefit, but like feeding each other. So, you know the story of hell and heaven. Someone wanted to experience what is hell and what is heaven. So first this person went to hell to find out what it looked like. So there was people in houses and a normal situation. And he looked around. Why it's called hell, he didn't quite understand. But then the lunch bell went and the people came out of their cells and they were thin and starving and long arms and long bodies and so on. They sat at the table in front of each other. Food was on the table, but they had so long arms that when they wanted to feed themselves, they could not reach their mouth. The food went over their head and fell on the floor. The food was on the floor and they remained hungry. And day after day, week after week, month after month, they remained hungry. And so the hell is a hell of hungry ghosts, hungry people. Then he went to heaven And in the heaven, not very different situation. Everything looked similar. But people came out when the lunch bell went, and they were all looking very well, and they were well fed. How do they do it? They have also long arms, long legs, tall bodies, sat at the table, and they start to feed each other. Because if they had feed themselves, arms will be long and food will fall down. But the person sitting in front of you, so everybody got fed, but not by feeding themselves, but by feeding each other. So my model of education, or my ideal of education is that we go out in the world, not to serve ourselves, but to serve the earth, serve the people, in the service of the earth. Then earth will look after us and our needs. And there are plenty of food, there are plenty of fruit, there are plenty of wood for housing, there are plenty of everything. Earth will give us. But we are in the service of the earth, caring for the earth, looking after the environment, not polluting, not wasting, not destroying, not undermining, not undervaluing. And the same with people. We look after people, there will be nobody poor, nobody without being looked after, caring, in the hospitals, in the schools, everywhere. So that at the moment people do their jobs to earn money for themselves, and therefore it's a very egotistical education. So I want education which is preparing me for life and preparing me for service, and by serving each other, we all benefit. That's the kind of idea.
Oh, so I love what you're saying, because from permaculture perspective, the basic kind of ethics that are underlying everything is care for earth, care for people, and fair share.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying. So it fits beautifully.
Yeah.
What does that education look like? If that's the ethic and the heart that we have about the type of education we want, what does that kind of education look like in our universities, or in our schools, or in our communities?
Yeah. That education, as I have written a chapter in my book, Soil Society, that education should involve education of head, education of hearts, and education of hands. At the moment, our education mainly is of head. Thinking, analyzing, information, knowledge a little bit, but more information. Now, that knowledge and experience should be complemented with experience. And where experience comes by feeling, heart, and by making, hands. And so education of head, education of hearts, and education of hands. These three together, it makes the education. So every school should have time in curriculum, in their syllabus, in their timetable, how we are going to cultivate our hearts and our feelings, how we cultivate compassion for each other, how we cultivate compassion for the earth, how we create compassion for humanity, how we respect each other, how we have kindness in our heart, how we love each other, how we love nature, how we love the mountains and the forests and the animals and the birds and the wasps and the bees and the oceans and everything in nature. So that is a heart quality. But in our educational system, we don't have any time when you teach people how to be compassionate, how to be kind, how to cultivate non-violence, how to cultivate truth, how to cultivate beauty, how to cultivate goodness. There's no room for them. Just thought, intellectual information, books after books after books, full of in and out. So I want to bring heart as a core curriculum in our education system. And then every school must have a garden, a permaculture garden, an organic garden, where people know and learn how to cultivate, how to plant trees, how to grow orchards, fruit, vegetables, grain, and energy, and how to store water, how to cultivate food, but how to harvest sunlight and create energy. So it's a kind of complete cycle of energy and food and ourselves. So that kind of, every school, every university must have, in a proper education, a garden and a field, and also teaching skills like pottery, woodwork, making chairs, making furniture, building a house should be part of our everyday education.
Absolutely.
If everybody needs to eat, we don't know how to grow food, we don't know how to cook food, and we need houses. Everybody needs a house to live, but we don't know how to build a house. All industrial housing.
I was recently in Uganda, and I met this young man who was 10 years old, and he was taking me for a tour through his home compound. It was full of food everywhere, and they were incredibly poor, but they had so much abundance. And then he showed me this particular tool he had, which was shaped out of some old branches with a flat top on the top. And I said, "Do you know what this is?" I said, "Oh, I know." He said, "This is how we make our houses."
Yeah.
And so he started to show me how they would collect the mud from the field around and make the bricks. And I'm looking at him saying, "You're 10. You're teaching me how to make a house."
Yeah.
That to me seems quite unusual.
Yeah.
And he looked at me as though it was an odd thing to be asking. He said, "Everyone knows how to make a house."
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
Exactly, yeah.
And
So our education system in the modern Western world is not education. It's not it's a much miseducation, and we are de-skilling people. We don't teach even people how to imagine.
Yes.
Imagination is missing.
Yeah.
So you can't imagine, and you can't make, you can't feel. You only can think, then worry. And so that's not education.
Now, I've met someone in the hallway earlier, young James, and he was telling me about a story that you told about worrying and food. Was that your story? Maybe it was someone about how...
Yeah.
Could you...
I was saying that universe had made this beautiful design in our body and in our life, that we have a mind to think. And the moment mind thinks, we have body to act. So thinking is fresh. Thinking is like fresh food. So you think and you act. So acting is like eating the fresh food. It's action. And so thinking is good, action is good. But thinking without action is like cooking the food but not eating. So put it on the shelf. And then after 2 days, 3 days, it becomes stale food. So thinking without acting is like worrying. So worrying is making your food stale. So we are living by stale food because all people are worrying so much. So I say worrying is a bad business.
Do you remember, I came and asked you a long time ago. I was interested because I had very young children at the time, and I came and asked you, and I said, "I'm really fascinated by the small school that you started, and I would really like to begin one for my young children. What should I do?" And you just said, "Just start." And so we did, and it's fabulous.
That's it. That's action.
That's the thing. That we
so action is like fresh food. Thinking is fresh food, and action is fresh food eating. And leaving your food, not acting. Thinking but without acting is making your fresh thinking into stale thinking. Worry is making your thinking stale.
So how is the small school going and all those various programs?
Now we are changing the small school a little bit. Now we are making because the small school was also taking exams and children were passing exams so they can go to university. Now a friend of ours has started another school nearby which is supported by the government academy so that children don't have to pay fee. So now we are changing our educational system, and now our children will learn how to grow food, how to cook food, how to make pottery, how to make furniture, how to build a house, practical skills. But they will learn during the weekends, evenings, holidays. And the school time, they will go to nearby another school. And so our school will be informal education and more heart and hands. And we will leave the nearby school to teach the head. But it will be there. It will be continuous there. The small school buildings are there. And buildings have been a bit under bad repair, poor repair. So we are now repairing some buildings, making a new roof, putting solar panels, and we are putting rainwater harvesting, and all those things are making it a bit more ecological, a bit more sustainable, so the school can become an example of permaculture. And in essence, so it's becoming more ecological, environmental, and sustainable school. So it's continuing, but slightly changing format.
And Schumacher College has changed a lot since I first came here 27 years ago. It's surrounded by gardens. There's so much more.
Oh, yes. The garden is a great new addition. What we are doing, all our students who come here to participate, short course and long course, everybody participate in the garden. But in addition to that, we have a 6-month-long course for growers. And so people come in the beginning of April and they stay here up to the end of September. 6 months growing season. And so at that time, they learn about principles of permaculture, but also practice of permaculture, and also agroecology, also biodynamic farming, organic farming. So various methods which are kind of sustainable, ecological, environmental, holistic methods which have been developed over many years, like Fukuoka's natural farming, and Rudolf Steiner's biodynamic farming, and organic farming, and permaculture, agroecology. All these aspects we teach. So 6 months course, we call them growers, and at the moment we have 13 of them.
And I just met some of them. Just arrived, haven't they?
Just arrived. Yes. And the 2 of them are, in addition to 13, 2 people have stayed on from the previous course, so they can be assistant teachers. So that makes 15. And then our main teacher is Jane Gleason, so she's 16. So about 16 or 17 people we have every year who are fully committed and dedicated to learning, growing. And that's a new addition.
So do you know much about do those people then go out and start their own farms, or do they go out and then teach other people? Have you heard much about
they do all sorts of things. Many of them start their own gardens. And they become kind of market gardeners, so they can grow enough vegetables to sell, to make living. And then some of them get good work in great gardens, because there are great gardens where people want to grow vegetables organically in a permaculture way and a kind of ecological way, and so they get job as gardeners. And one of the 2 of them are head gardeners of some wonderful gardens. And then some of them start their own farms as well. And some of them teach, and they are teaching. And so, because when you get so many people, when they go back, they do different things.
Yes, that's right.
So, it's a variety.
So, it's quite a phenomenal thing what's going on here at Schumacher College, isn't it? I mean, you have the Master of Holistic Science and the Master of, is it New Economics or Master of...
Yes, we have 3 postgraduate programs. The first program we started with continuing is a Master in Holistic Science. So what we are saying is the Schumacher College and the environmental movement is not against science. So what kind of science? It's a holistic science which includes Gaia and complexity and the chaos theory and Goethe's work and many other Fritz Capra, David Bohm, Rupert Sheldrake, Vandana Shiva. All these scientists teach here a holistic science. So then we have transition of economics, or economics of transition. So the economics of transition is based on Schumacher's More is Beautiful, Buddhist economics. Economics as if people matter, not profit. So economics should not be without ecology. Economics should not be seeing nature as a resource for money. Economics should be teaching people that nature is a source of life and not a resource for making money. And so that kind of economics of transition, how we shift from this economics, which is based on the enormous input from fossil fuel, to economics, which is based on renewable energy and a low input energy, so that we don't contribute to global warming and climate change. So it's a kind of new economics. The third course we run in postgraduate program is ecological design thinking. And so how we design our organizations, how we design our products, how we design our houses in such a way that permaculture principle based, so that it's cyclical and not linear. Because you take from nature, you use it, and you throw it away on the landfills. So this is a kind of linear economy. So our design should be such that we take from nature, use it and put it back in nature. Cyclical system. And so whether it's an organization or products or houses or energy use, whatever way it is, that kind of holistic principle is part of ecological design thinking. So we have 3 master's programs. And then we have a 4th one is, as I said, the growers program, which is for gardening. And the other program is what we call short courses. So short courses last for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even weekend. And so we want to serve and cater the needs of everybody, whoever. So some people have only weekend, so we offer some weekend courses. Some people have 1 week, so we offer them a week-long course. Some people have 2 or 3 weeks, they can come for that. And then if they have 6 months, they can come for growers program. If they're whole year, they can come for master's program. So we are catering for everybody.
That's fantastic. And I hear that there's this alumni network that's reaching out across the world as well, and people are starting up sort of little satellite projects as well that feed into this whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also in India too, you have a close collaboration with Vandana Shiva School, I understand. And you teach there as well.
Yeah, I teach there.
I haven't been there yet. Can you tell us a little bit about that school?
Yes. Vandana Shiva is one of our regular teachers here. And inspired by Schumacher, she started something called Earth University. And it is based on 50-acre, completely biodiverse, organic permaculture farm. Completely.
Fantastic.
It's a beautiful example of sustainable, good ecological farming. And she has 500 mango trees and lots of oranges and lemons and papayas and bananas and millets and rice and vegetables and herbs. Everything she grows. 50 acres, so it's a good piece of land.
And so a core part of that too is seed sovereignty, isn't it?
Yes, seed sovereignty. That's her main idea. And so it should be, actual farm is there and a growing food is there. But in addition to that, she has added the educational program. So she teaches A to Z of organic agriculture. A to Z. So part of that is permaculture, part of that is agroecology, part of that is biodynamic. Like we do here, our growers courses, she does the same thing. But that's her program is shorter, 1 month, 4 weeks course. And so that's A to Z of organic farming. And then I go and teach there every year, Gandhi and globalization. And we teach, Vandana, I teach together. So it's a kind of Schumacher inspired and Schumacher modeled center in India. But there's another school in India near Bangalore called Bhumi College, which means land college, based on land again. And so they are also doing some master's program and short courses and practical cooking, gardening, practical work as well. So there are 2 schools in India. And then we have a Escola Schumacher in Brazil.
Right. And we're about to go and visit Escola Kumar in Mallorca.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Escola Kumar in Mallorca, Escola Schumacher in Brazil. Then there's a group working in Colombia and a group in China. And so Schumacher Worldwide is a big program. And we have got 15,000 Schumacher alumni around the world now. And so we are constantly in contact with them. And many of them come back as a kind of renewal and revitalization and regeneration and renewal. So they come back again and again. And also I go, Stefan goes, and Patricia, and Julie, and Jonathan, we all, our faculty, we go around and teach there. So also we run sort of gatherings of Schumacher alumni. Last one I went to was in Romania, and it was wonderful. And this year is going to be in Holland. I'm not going this year, but it will be very good again.
I think it's time for one in Australia. There must be many of us in Australia.
Yeah. You should go.
We will. I think I will organise one when I get home. That sounds like a thing to do.
Very good. Yeah. And so we want to reach Because Schumacher is not just Dartington here. We want to see Schumacher sort of activities growing. And your work, what you are teaching, is Schumacher.
That's right.
And we don't need to have a name.
No.
Name is not important. It's the content.
That's right.
And you are teaching. It's heart.
And the hands,
And in your hands. So you are Schumacher, and you are our Schumacher alumni. So you were inspired here. And now you have created a new college. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So you've just written a new book.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
My new book is called Elegant Simplicity. And so what I am saying is that living a simple life is essential and a prerequisite for a sustainable future. If we go on using nature, natural material, and churning that into consumer goods more and more and more, buildings and roads and furniture and clothes and everything, nature is finite. And so then we waste so much. And so let's take from nature what is our real need, make some beautiful things, comfortable, good life, but not too much. And so no clutter, not too much. So simplicity is prerequisite for sustainability. But also I'm saying that simplicity is prerequisite for spirituality. Because in order to buy so much goods and material and houses, you have to work hard. And then you have to shop hard. And then you have to look after hard. So much time is given. And there's no time for meditation, for spirituality, for family, for love, for friendship, for walking, for dancing, music, poetry. All those are spiritual nourishment that we need. We have no time. If you are an artist, then you become a specialist artist. Well, what I want is to see everybody having time to write poetry, to be an artist, to go for walking, have time for family, time for friendship, time for themselves. And in order to do that, you have to work less, earn less, consume less, live simple life so that you have time for non-material things. So for spirituality, simplicity is essential. And then I'm also saying that for social justice, you need to live simple life. Because if some people gather too much, other people have too little. And therefore poverty, injustice, inequality are fostered. And so if we all lived simple life and shared everything among everybody else, and everybody's need should be met. And there's abundance in nature as long as we are only looking for our need and not for our greed. So our modern economy promotes and kind of encourages greed and craving for more and more and more. So if we can control our craving and our greed and meet our needs, then there's enough in the world for everybody's need, but not anybody's greed. With that principle, elegant simplicity is the answer.
Wonderful. And that only just came out this week, so I'm going to go and get my copy as soon as I can.
Yeah.
So just to close up, thank you so much for your time. There's one last thing that you could advise. So the people who are doing my course are becoming new teachers in this world of permaculture and sustainable thinking. So some advice in terms of direction or focus that you think would be really critical for being a teacher in this realm?
When you are learning about permaculture and learning about living in harmony with the natural world, first principle is to celebrate. Celebrate the beauty and the majesty and the magnanimity and the benevolence of nature. We have forgotten how to celebrate. So celebration is the underpinning principle of permaculture. Because permaculture is a permanent culture. It's a principle of permanence. Permanence is a perennial. Year after year after year. The economy of nature is not for 1 year or 5 years or 50 years. It's for millions of years. And how do you create an economy which is based in principle of permaculture? Only if you celebrate nature. So when we celebrate earth, we celebrate the trees, we celebrate the sunshine, we celebrate the rain, we celebrate our own lives, we celebrate our friendship, and we celebrate our creativity. So celebration is, in my view, the key to find joy in our work.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you are doing, food you have cooked, celebrate and then enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
We have grown the food. What is a harvest festival? It's a celebration of the bounty of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
But we forget to celebrate. We just grow and eat, and that's it. But between growing and eating is celebration. And so permaculture should be underpinned always with celebration. And once you have that, then the second principle should be contentment. There's enough. Everything is enough. We have enough. Nature gives us enough. In our body, we have enough. We have intelligence, we have imagination, we can have eyes, we can see, we can hear, we can speak, we can feel. We have so much good body. We can build a house, we can grow our food, we can write books, we can dance, we can play piano or violin, we can sing. What do we need else? What more do we need? Nature has given us everything. Nature has given us trees and the soil and the soul and our community, society. This is my trinity of soil, soul, society. So soil will give us food, soul will give us happiness and joy, and society will give us a community. So if we can celebrate soil, soul, society, this is celebration is the key. So I would say celebrating soil, soul, society is the way to permaculture.
Thank you so much, Satish, for
You're
your
welcome.
time. It's
You're
really
welcome.
lovely to see you again.
I'm delighted to see you again after so long. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So thanks for tuning in to the Sense Making in a Changing World podcast today. It's been a real pleasure to have your company. I invite you to subscribe and receive notification of each new weekly episode with more wonderful stories, ideas, inspiration, and common sense for living and working regeneratively. And call positive permaculture thinking and design into action in this changing world. I'm including a transcript below and a link also to my 4-part permaculture series, really looking at what is permaculture and how to make it your livelihood too. So join me again in the next episode where we talk with another fascinating guest. I look forward to seeing you there.